Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sentinel. Now, the last episode really blew up, and everybody got some good laughs out of it. And I think levity is good. You just can't take yourself too damn serious. Otherwise, you just walk around always pissed off with a scowl on your face. And I'm pretty good at that also. Nonetheless, I'm back in my Walmart t shirt. I'm feeling pretty good about it, and I appreciate everybody's support in the last two episodes. Although they're mouse turds, I think they're pretty damn important. One is, maintain standards. Once you stop maintaining standards, then the lesser standard becomes the standard. So it's important as Marines, as service members, to maintain high standards. The second part that's important is you should be able to laugh about yourself a little bit. You can't take this whole thing too damn serious. Nonetheless, today's episode is pretty damn serious, and serious for the following reason. So last week, the Marine Corps Officer Candidate School graduated, and it was a great graduation. I saw a bunch of pictures and a bunch of comments on social media, and everybody's excited. I remember when I graduated from OCS, it was a hell of an achievement. I was pretty damn excited. But there's a big difference between the OCS that I went through and looking at the current OCS graduation pictures, and it kind of struck me. The OCS has a woman commanding officer. Now, let me just be very clear. This is not about women. This is not about the commanding officer that's serving there. This is about our mindset, our culture. That's what I want to talk about. So I went back and looked at the history of OCS. So OCS basically started all the way back in 1891 as School of Application. In those days, the Marine Corps used to get its officers from the naval academies, and we still do, about 16%. So the School of Application was at Marine Barracks, Washington, D.C. It was to basically get all the Naval Academy graduates in and expose them to the Marine Corps culture. So World War I comes around, and we need greater number of Marine officers. So the School of Application basically moves to the Marine Barracks in Philadelphia. Then back in 1940, it moves back to Quantico, Virginia, as Officers Candidate School. And during this time, we had some great commanders like Colonel Lem Shepard, a Navy Cross recipient and a former Commandant of the Marine Corps. So he kind of established a training program for Marine officers at Quantico. And then you fast forward, World War II, obviously the Marine Corps needs large numbers of officers. Basically, the Marine Corps opens it up to the enlisted commissioning program, any college graduate, and the platoon leaders course, because we need high numbers of platoon commanders to go into combat for World War II. After World War II, OCS continues to be a pipeline for Marine officers because of the Korean War and the Vietnam War. Then after the Vietnam War, the Marine Corps continues to upgrade its curriculum and requirements for Marine officers at OCS and the basic school. So OCS was generally about 10 to 13 weeks, different time frames, and then the basic school was essentially 6 months long for Marine officers. And then if you were to become an infantry officer, then you had to go to the infantry officers course. So when I went through OCS, my commanding officer was Colonel Robert Johnston. I mean, this guy was a stud. He ended up retiring as a three-star lieutenant general. Most of you probably know him from Desert Storm. He was the chief of staff of General Schwarzkopf. And this man really inspired me. He was always squared away. He was a 300 PFTer, and I wanted to be him. Obviously, I wasn't as good looking as he was, but nonetheless, I tried. And I always kept myself squared away. And he would be out there on the endurance course, on the combat course, and out there training and evaluating each one of the candidates that was going through the school. Then after Colonel Johnston, we had Colonel Wellesley Fox, Medal of Honor recipient. It was common knowledge at Quantico that Colonel Fox would be out there training with the candidates and inspiring them and showing them what leadership's all about and leading from the front. And then after that, we also had a colonel by the name of Bob Chase. Now, I know Colonel Chase, a phenomenal infantry officer, incredible, a big thinker also, and prior enlisted, was the honor graduate in boot camp, was the honor graduate in OCS, and just a kick-ass guy. So, and he was out there. So after Colonel Bob Chase, the Marine Corps kind of took a left turn and started assigning officers that didn't have the combat experience or weren't necessarily infantry officers. So we had like Colonel David Hyman was assigned as the CO of OCS, Colonel Williamson, communications backdrop, Colonel Julie Nethercote, again, communications background. And many of these people went on to become general officers. The issue is this is the problem that I have with it. First and foremost is OCS is like an entry gate, right? It's a rite of passage. One has to not only demonstrate their leadership potential, their academic potential, and their physical and mental toughness. And that's the evaluation criteria that they judge you upon and to see if you're qualified to be a Marine officer. So, in my mind, if you don't have the combat experience or you don't understand and haven't experienced what the combat arms, specifically the infantry, requires of an individual, which is really the highest standard in the Marine Corps, what kind of officers are we bringing in? And now there's a correlation between the type of officers that we've sort of commissioned in the Marine Corps and the quality of officers at the other end in the Marine Corps, and the reason we have some of these issues that we do. And I bear full responsibility going back to the Commandant, going back to Amos when he brought in Julie Nethercoat. She's a phenomenal officer, don't get me wrong, but she was selected to be the commanding officer of OCS in 2014. Amos retires. General Dunford comes in 2015, and he's got to assign her, and he assigned her there, and she did okay. I'm not knocking her. Then after that, she went on to become the commanding general of the Eastern Recruiting Region, which means commanding general of MCRD Paris Island. So there's an evolutionary process here. So when I noticed when Colonel Melendez was assigned, so I started digging into it and saying, okay, what the hell's going on here? Why don't we have people with combat experience or people with an infantry background? So I went and looked up her bio. Please don't take this the wrong way. She's a phenomenal officer, okay? But she doesn't have the combat and the infantry background that's required. I'm a father of 2 wonderful daughters, and I've got a granddaughter, and I want them to have equal opportunity. By the same token, I also believe in standards, and the standards should not be diluted just to accommodate women. I support women in the military. I was the first infantry battalion to actually take women into combat. And I don't mean a combat deployment, deploying to Afghanistan or Iraq, but we took women, for sustained combat operations through the mountains of Afghanistan, and they were with us in my battalion, about a dozen of them. And their function was to basically search women and children, because we have to respect the Afghan culture, and they did fantastic, even under fire. Even in gunfights, I remember some of them assaulting up these mountains with me. So I've got an incredible amount of respect. By the same token, there's certain commands in the Marine Corps that require actual combat experience, that require command experience, that require you to have a combat arms background. And what's happened is the past commandants have diluted that standard and brought in communicators, administrators, supply guys, and Colonel Melendez. She's got a great background, but it's not a combat background. It's not an infantry background. So let's just talk about it real briefly. In 2000, she graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy. And, the U.S. Naval Academy is not an easy feat. My son went to the Naval Academy. It's a tough program, and I respect it. Then she became a logistics officer, a motor transport platoon commander, and then she was at the Marine Wing Support Group. I'm not sure what the Marine Wing Support Group does, but it sounds like a supply type unit to me. Then she commanded a support company and deployed to Iraq. Now, on paper, they'll say this is a combat deployment, but that's bullshit, right? Because she was actually deployed to Takadam Air Base, and that's where she worked. Now, I don't know if she ever went outside the wire or not, but to me, there's a big difference between being in combat and a combat deployment. Nonetheless, then she comes back and goes to the Expeditionary Warfare School in 2007. Then she's assigned to Headquarters Marine Corps as a Special Projects Officer. After that, she goes to Command and Staff College. And then in 2014, she's the Operations Officer and the XO for Combat Logistics Battalion. In my mind, that's good, because that's where Command and Staff graduates should go to. Then after that, she signed as an Inspector General for the Marine Air Group. And following that, she goes to 1MEF G4. And then in 2020, she becomes a commanding officer for the 1MEF Support Battalion. Now, again, support logistics background. And we certainly need good people in support and logistics type functions, because, quite frankly, you can't win battles or wars without having the proper logistics, supporting you. Then she goes on to serve as a Marine Corps Fellow at the Atlantic Council and Snowcroft Center for Strategy and Security. So basically, it's a high-level school, and Marine officers go and get exposure to strategy and security type issues. Uh, then from there, she goes to the Office of Legislative Affairs and becomes the Director of Liaison for Congress. So that's essentially a background. In the meantime, she also goes to Harvard Business School of Advanced Management program. So in my mind, many of these officers have impeccable records. There's no doubt. They haven't really made any hard combat decisions. So from the headquarters Marine Corps perspective, the OCS commanding officer runs a schoolhouse. The problem is OCS is training future platoon commanders. In combat, that's what you need. You need future leaders. That's what you need. And a SEAL with no infantry background and no combat decision making and no exposure to hard tactical problems is limited. Quite frankly, they're also limited in understanding what a platoon commander actually needs in the field. They're limited in judging tactical decision making, and also limited in identifying true combat potential of an officer candidate. They're limited in differentiating between garrison performance and combat leaders. Now, that's my opinion. Now, I may be wrong, but I'll tell you this much. If you look at the quality of Marine Corps officers that have come out of OCS and TBS in the late 2000s, it's gradually gone down. I'm not saying this. A lot of my contemporaries are saying that. And the reason for that is last few commandants, going all the way back to Amos, have been diluting standards incrementally without people noticing it, and playing to the politicians rather than what's required for warfighting. That's the fundamental issue here. So about 10 months ago, I did an episode, number 65, on women DIs being assigned to male platoons. So now think about that. Why would we want to assign female drill instructor to male platoons? I mean, it creates a whole bunch of issues. They can't really supervise the male recruits taking showers, and imagine being a male recruit and you got a female drill instructors getting in your face. Are you really going to take her seriously? I don't know. You'll have to answer that question. Nonetheless, and this was all done on General Eric Smith's watch. He's the one that made that decision, okay? Yet, 9 months ago, I did an episode, number 76, where General Eric Smith claimed to the media, this is right after President Trump was inaugurated, that the Marine Corps does not have a DEI program. I quickly went online and I did the screen captures on the Marine Corps website about the Marine Corps DEI program. So the big question was, did he lie to the media? And that episode blew up, over 500,000 hits and whatnot, okay? And he never came out with a clarification. It was just kind of brushed aside. But people remember this stuff. And people remember what Amos did. He played to the politicians, specifically President Obama, dropping standards. And there are other commandants that drop standards in IOC to get women to graduate IOC. So they just dropped the standard to do that. Oh, we don't have to carry the load march. The 150 pounds can be spread loaded amongst everybody within that squad. Well, that's horseshit too, because in combat, you're not going to get that luxury, right? And the reason they came up with the 150 pounds is so you can evacuate a casualty. That's the important part. All these things, people don't think through what the combat application of their decisions are. Amos had no clue about ground combat. Yeah, he's an aviator. I get all that. But on ground combat, things are a hell of a lot different. And I'm telling you, a supply officer, a communications officer, or a logistics officer has no clue about what's going on in actual ground combat when you're 300 meters away from the enemy. It's a whole different freaking ball game. And unless you've been there, done that, or at least practiced that art, you'll never understand it. So the question I have is, why is the Marine Corps assigning people that lack the requisite combat experience or the combat arms experience to these critical positions? And then they move on to be the commanding general of the Eastern Recruiting Region, which also is MCRD, Parris Island. So this is how they incrementally keep bringing down the standards and getting these people in these positions. Now, why is it so damn important to have a woman Marine as the CEO of OCS? Is it because preponderance of the candidates are women? So by my research, less than 10% of the Marines are females. And that number is even smaller when you look at Marine officers. So basically what we're saying is we have a population of around 10% that we're catering to and ignoring the requirements for the other 90%. And combat is serious business. And I'm sort of disappointed in Eric Smith. Eric Smith knows all this stuff. He's got an infantry background, but what he's doing, he's playing to the politicians. And I'm sort of shocked that Pete Hegseth would allow this. And I also know that Pete Hegseth and Stu Schiller and everybody are looking at how to make better officers, and we got to go back to how we're bringing in these officers and how we're evaluating these officers. I think that's so damn critical to make sure that we're getting the right type of person in the military that is morally sound, that's physically tough, that's mentally tough, that's academically smart, and has the leadership qualities to lead our troops. And I think this is very important. And this is definitely not a knock on Colonel Melendez. She's doing the job that she's assigned to, and I've got an incredible amount of respect for her. But at the end of the day, we need to get serious about it, because what you're going to see next is, I guarantee you, is the basic school is going to have a female commanding officer, and I, female commanding officer, and people are going to forget about it, that all the Marines that are serving in the ceremonial platoon and stuff are actually infantrymen. And and they've already slid in a female platoon commander for the ceremonial platoon. I'm not knocking her. She's probably a great officer. I get all that. But some things need to be left alone. That's what I'm saying. And I think it's very important. And imagine going to OCS under Colonel Wesley Fox or Colonel Shepard. Those are the icons that we need to bring back and put in these positions of importance, like OCS, the basic school, 8th and I, and billets like that are influencing the Marine officers of the future. So we get the right leadership for our troops and our Marines, and especially in combat. That's what matters. Because otherwise, we're just going to be a hostage to our own circumstance. It all goes back to how we bring in our officers and how we train these officers. And unfortunately, there have been general officers going all the way back to the likes of Hog Tamer Amos that have diluted the system just to appease politicians. And we got to get back to the fundamentals of warfighting lethality, and you just can't do that if you don't have the right people in the right positions. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. It's an important one because it determines what the future of our Marine Corps and our services really is going to be, based on the type of caliber of individuals we bring in and how we're training them. That's all I got. Stay rugged, stay united. Con out.